welcome back to the channel. This is now episode 5 of That Hippie Pilot. My name is Chris. I'm going to do something that we haven't done so far on this channel. As many of you know, I'm currently finishing up my bachelor's in aviation through Liberty University. And what I'm going to share with you today is an end of semester project that I submitted just about 2 months ago. Got an A. Thank you. I'm going to be discussing 2 things in this project. First, and very briefly, will be the impact that technically advanced aircraft has had on safety in general aviation. And then I'm going to give you my take on Foreflight, the way that I like to use it, the features that I find most beneficial for the kind of flying that I currently do in Southern California. As many of you know who are familiar with Foreflight, this little project is not going to be a comprehensive overview of Foreflight. That would take months. So for that reason, if you see something that you would do differently, or you've got a pro tip for me, leave it in the comments down below. And please remember to stay tuned at the end of this. I'm going to take another minute of your time because I'd like to introduce you to another YouTuber here in Southern California whose content I find really useful, not just for entertainment, but also for education, especially when it comes to navigation and Foreflight and whatnot. So I'm going to wrap up this ramble right here, and let's get into the project. I'll see you on the other side. We are coming to the end of a really unusual semester and an unusual time in our life here on Earth. No doubt about that. This is our final project, and we're going to be talking about our GPS research presentation with an extra question in there asking about what we feel like the effects are of technologically advanced aircraft on general aviation safety. So I've put together a PowerPoint presentation here and just going to get it fired up. So the topics of discussion here today. TAA, technically advanced or technologically advanced conversation. I'll explain why that difference in a minute. And we're just going to take a look at the trends in aviation safety since these have become more common. And then we're going to give you an overview of Foreflight. Now, we could talk forever about Foreflight, but I'm just going to give you kind of my quick hits and give you an idea of how I use it and how I feel like it makes me feel safer in the skies and in the cockpit. So moving on from there. Technically advanced aircraft. FAR Part 61.29J in 2018 sort of gave it an official definition. And technically advanced, some people call it technologically advanced aircraft, basically means an aircraft that has a PFD, an MFD, a 2-axis autopilot integrated, and I don't have it up there, but both PFD and MFD have to be visible continuously. So in our discussion about the G1000, that's a prime example of a technically advanced aircraft. Now, how does that look in terms of safety? Well, in 2007, and I know this is a while ago, the AOPA Air Safety Foundation released a report on technologically advanced aircraft safety and training. And what they determined was that in the time preceding as technically advanced aircraft became more prominent, they did see, by comparison to general aviation at large, a decrease in the number of accidents. That's good. However, when they spread it out, they realized that there were fewer accidents on takeoff and so forth, but there was an increase in aircraft accidents compared to the rest of general aviation at the conclusion of the flight, and basically determined that mostly VFR-rated pilots were putting themselves in sticky situations, relying too much on the technology that they had, and maybe going beyond what would otherwise have been their personal minimums. So there's a bit of a warning there. So basically what the TAA or what the AOPA determined was the TAA, it definitely offers incredible enhancements to situational awareness, but it's no substitute for good flying and good decision making, and it's a kind of a warning to everybody. It can be a fantastic tool, but it's certainly not a substitute. So moving on. Foreflight. Now, I'm sure that many of you, if not all, use Foreflight, and many of you may be doing a presentation on Foreflight as well. I don't know. So I'm just going to tell you what it is that I think I find the most benefit from, understanding that in time it's probably going to expand as my knowledge of it expands and the type of flying that I do expands. But I look at Foreflight as, first off, a single source for all the information that I need that's relevant to my flight. That means anything from up-to-date FAA charts and supplements to all applicable imagery, weather imagery, winds aloft, everything just right at your fingertip. AFDs, information on every airport that I could hope to go to, right? It's all right there in one place. I don't have to carry a bunch of things around, and all I have to do is make sure that I keep it up to date. Now, that being said, it's very simple to update because it's on my iPad, it's connected to the internet, just tap of a button and it stays up to date. I said an intuitive and adaptable flight planning tools. And what I mean by that is we've gotten so used to using smartphones and tech for so long that the interface that Foreflight Mobile uses on the iPad app is not that difficult to figure out. In fact, I'm sure that my two teenage daughters could get through it much more quickly than I can. So it's fairly intuitive in the way that you use it. And it sort of encourages you to experiment. Well, what if I tap on this? What happens? What can I do? You can learn a lot that way, and adaptable because you're not just limited to radio or GPS navigation, so to speak. You have the ability to create your own waypoints or your own new unique ways of planning, and I'll demonstrate some of that in the upcoming video. Improve situational awareness. It goes without saying. I'm going to talk about it in the video, so I'm not going to beat it up right here. And then a full-featured backup to the onboard avionics of your aircraft. And I don't talk about this in the video. However, if you are using, say, like a Stratus to provide the GPS and ADSB information to Foreflight while you're in the air, you also have backup AHRS. So you can pull up AHRS with synthetic vision, kind of like what's shown on the screen right here. I'm not sure. Yeah. You've got that at your fingertips, including synthetic vision with terrain awareness. It's an amazing backup. If everything goes wrong, it's not certified for primary navigation in IFR conditions, but it can certainly get you out of a jam. Make sure you've got a power source. Okay, so I've got a video here that I put together to show you an example of how I use Foreflight. It's about 5 minutes, and I'm going to have to turn myself off and turn my mic off before I do this so you don't get a lot of feedback. So bear with me for just a moment. Let's have a little conversation about Foreflight. Here we are, the good old US of A, the middle part. It's got a lot of bad weather, but we're not really worrying about that. We're going to talk about Southern California today, and I'm going to try as quickly and painlessly as possible show you how I use all the features inside of Foreflight to navigate around all of that airspace to make a trip from up here in Santa Monica down to John Wayne or Santa Ana, whatever you prefer to call it. Now, the airspace around Southern California is obviously a little bit intimidating and crazy. And there's a huge surface area of the Los Angeles International Airspace that we need to navigate around or through. And fortunately, that's a possibility. Foreflight includes all it includes all the FAA charts and terminal supplemental charts, etc. And so there's an air thing here called Los Angeles Special Flight Rules that basically just says when I leave Santa Monica, after I cross the shoreline, I make a right climbing 270, join up on the Santa Monica 132 radial at 3,500 feet until I'm clear south of Los Angeles International Airport. So let's take a look at that on the map. This is a little bit cluttered, so I can switch my map view to a VFR flyaway chart, again, which is included, and I'm going to select Santa Monica Airport by long pressing it and just clicking it to add it to my route. Now, you may have noticed that once I added it to my route, I got extended, let me illustrate that. I got these extended center lines.
really great for situational awareness, either on departure, where they're probably going to have me fly runway heading until I cross the shoreline, or on approach. Let me clear this annotation off of here. So what I want to do is make a right, as we said, a right climbing 270-degree turn when I leave Santa Monica. And I know that they're probably going to want me to depart and then make a right turn at the shoreline. So I can simply tap and hold and create a user waypoint. And I've added that to my route. I look at the flight plan, and there it is. Making a right 270, I don't want to just guess. I might as well put another waypoint along the way. Why not overfly my house? So I'm going to add that to my route. And then finally, back to Santa Monica, long press and hold, click on nav, and that shows me the Santa Monica VOR. Now we're in position to fly that radial. How do I fly that radial using my GPS function? Well, I can type in Santa Monica, the radial number, and the distance that I want to fly it. In this case, I've already measured it to be about 7 miles. And sure enough, there it is. It's gotten us through that airspace. Now, you might be wondering, how did I measure it? I simply tap with 2 fingers, and I've got a ruler function. Incredible, right? Something very simple and useful to do. Now, there are a lot of airports in the area and a lot of airspace still to be concerned with. We still have Torrance Airport and Long Beach, etc. At this point, we would just want to fly down to, let's say, the Queen Mary. So I long press and hold on that, click on waypoints. That's now part of my route. I'm going to get into contact with John Wayne, and they're probably going to tell me to fly directly to the Huntington Beach Pier. Long hold, tap on that waypoint, it's there, and then finally John Wayne. Click airports and add John Wayne Airport to my route. Now, John Wayne Airport's bigger than Santa Monica, and I might get a little bit confused on the ground. So what I'm going to do is take a look at the airport and the runways and find out that it looks like they're favoring runway 20, and then look at the taxi diagram. On the taxi diagram, I've got a NOTAM here that tells me that there's steel plates on Alpha between Juliet and Kilo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark that so I'm aware of it. And I'm also going to drop a little box here on the area where I intend to park so that when I get on the ground, I'm not completely confused. I've got a little bit of situational awareness. And then I'm going to tap here and send that to my map so that when I land, this is a geolocated plate, and it will show me exactly where I'm at on the airport. So we've got a pretty good look at our total route now. I'm going to get rid of this. Now you can see here also that I can toggle airports on or off so that en route, if I have any questions, but at any time on my route, if I just simply long press and hold, it'll show me all the airports that are near me. I can add them to my route. I can click on more information. I can get their weather, the frequencies, and it will even show me a direct heading bearing to fly to. So in terms of situational awareness, I'm going to click on profile on my flight plan, and it's going to show me what I can expect if I run the risk of busting any airspace or obstacles along the way. And I can even do a 3D preview of my flight. So if I'm flying in an unfamiliar area, I can sort of get a visual of what to expect as I make my way down to John Wayne, the Queen Mary, Huntington Beach Pier, and then finally crossing midfield to join a left downwind for runway 20 left. It's a pretty useful tool. We could spend weeks talking about all the different features of John Wayne of Foreflight. But really, I guess what I just demonstrated here is that in a matter of a couple minutes, I was able to plot a very sophisticated course going through very complicated airspace. And the rubber banding feature allows me to drag and drop and add new points and make adjustments anywhere along the way. Incredibly powerful tool. I highly recommend you check it out if it's not something that you're using already.
I am back. Okay, so I'll tell you what, the amount of time that it took me to figure out how to do this with the inset video and everything like that, I probably could have walked or crawled to John Wayne Airport, but it wouldn't have been as fun. So my key features in Foreflight are numerous, far too many to even really talk about. I illustrated a few of them in that video that I've got a ton of information at my fingertips. I can create my own passwords. I can use the extended center lines, which I touched on really briefly, but believe me, flying to an unfamiliar airport and just being able to project that out there so that you have a better idea where to set up, make your turn to final, etc. The VOR radial and distance nav, maybe there's a way to do this on the G1000. I couldn't figure it out, but it sure has been a lifesaver for me in terms of a place like, I'm talking about Southern California. I'm sure there's tons of crazy airspace, but some of the instructions you get on departure, fly runway heading until crossing the 310 radial, make an immediate turn to 250. It's nice to be able to chart that out and look at it visibly on a moving map. Even if I'm using my G1000 as my primary source of nav, I can always kind of double check. It creates a bit of redundancy. Rubber banding is that ability to just basically grab a course line and drag it any direction you want and either pick a new nav waypoint or even a user created one, so you can really fine tune your route really, really easily. Geo-reference plates and taxi diagrams. I showed you the example and of course I don't have an airplane on it, although you might have seen the little blue dot in my house where I was recording that. When you're on the ground on the taxiway, you know exactly where you're at on the airport. That can be really, really helpful coming into a place where you're unfamiliar. And I get a taxi instruction at John Wayne that says, taxi 20 left via Alpha Hotel Charlie Kilo Golf. Right? I can just see where I am on the airport and actually use the annotation function, which I kind of talk about here. Use the annotation function to draw it out on the map for me. But I can do the same thing with approach plates, which is great. You can overlay approach plates right on top of the top of the chart, so that you're flying in, you can see your actual position as you're flying that approach. Aircraft performance profiles. You can upload from the POH or from a database the exact performance profiles for your aircraft, and so you can get really finely tuned cross-country planning. Scratch pads, annotations I talked about, the preview, profile view, and the 3D view I find extremely helpful when flying through challenging airspace to just double check, right, where you're going to be in relation to that. What I didn't show you is that within that profile view, if you do a ruler or you drag inside there, it'll give you more specific kind of up to the moment views of your projected profile of flight. What else did I put in there? There's just so much stuff. So, in summary, when it comes to technologically advanced or technically advanced aircraft, it's no substitute for solid flying skills and good decision making, but it's an incredible supplement and it needs to be treated in that way. And then when it comes to Foreflight, for me, Foreflight means that it can save me time, it can save me money, and it can save me a ton of brain space. When I look back at the flight that I just planned in 5 minutes, while explaining it, you could really do it much more quickly. Years ago, that to me probably would have been 2 hours of stressing out, going through a number of pencils and erasers with my plotter on paper sectionals, and then thumbing through supplementals to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And then when getting in the air, having a ton of anxiety about my nav log, wondering if if I'm going to drift into airspace while I'm trying to make a radio call. With the benefit of a moving map showing me exactly where I'm at, I can avoid those things happening. So, and a ton of brain space. Once you're able to put it all in there, double check it and check it and check it and recheck it, then you can free yourself to better decision making by staying ahead of the airplane. And then time, obviously a time saver, but one thing to consider, especially when you're talking about cross-country flying where you might spend an enormous amount of time planning, weather's going to change, forecasts are going to change. This allows me to go in and shorten the time frame between the time I begin that plan to the time I execute the plan, which means that it's possible that the weather information I'm working off of is going to be more accurate. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I'm looking forward to seeing yours. It's crazy to believe this semester's all over. I've been flying a flight simulator here in my home like crazy, but it's really been a pleasure getting your feedback and hearing what all of you have to say. I hope to see you in the skies. If you want to read that AOPA Air Safety Foundation report, I put a link to it right here at the end. It's a 2007 report, and when I was searching, I had a difficult time finding anything more recent than that. And I think that because in 2007, the G1000 had been around for a few years, and so that was the first time they said, well, let's just take a look at this. But now it's really becoming the standard, so there's less comparison. I think they might do a backwards comparison saying, what are those dinosaurs who are still flying steam gauges? How often do they can crash compared to everybody else? Anyways, I'm going to sign off and look forward to watching your video submissions and wish you all the best this summer. I've been calling this Corona Chronicles, and I guess I didn't update you this week's Corona Chronicles. I broke my collarbone 2 days ago running, and I'm pretty sure, almost positive, that it was a COVID-19 tree that reached up and grabbed me with a tree root and sent me tumbling. So it got me. Hey, so thanks for hanging in there. I hope you found that useful or informative and maybe even entertaining. I don't know. So the guy that I wanted to introduce you to, his name is Wayne. His YouTube handle is GeezerGeek Pilot. I'll leave a link in the description below and even try to put a card up here. Basically, he's a retired software engineer who's got a really cool channel. He's done, I think, over 2,000 hours of flying all over North America, the Bahamas, and Central America since he retired 5 or 6 years ago. He's a good storyteller. He takes great footage, and he always finds a way to drop something in there that's educational and useful. And I found him really useful for getting better at using Foreflight. You might too. So thanks again for joining me. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. Hit that notifications bell so you know anytime I put something new out there. Be safe out there. I'm Chris. Stay tuned for episode 6 of that Hippie Pilot. I'll see you soon. Bye.